Hi, my name is Ramona Glisson, and I'm a candidate for Lamar's Master's Program in Education Leadership. Today I've asked David Glisson, who is a math teacher, and he has taught 6th grade and 8th grade, and he has been in education for 5 years. I've asked Gabby Matoka. She is a reading teacher. She teaches 4th grade and has been in education for 3 years. I've invited Ray Wagner, who is a special ed teacher who has taught K through 12 for 12 years. And I've invited Regina Walker, who is an assistant principal and has been in education for 11 years. Thank you all very much for coming today.
You're welcome.
Today we're going to discuss professional development within our school. Ms. Walker, what is the most powerful and impactful professional development activity you have experienced, and why was it so powerful and meaningful for you?
For me personally, it has been some discipline workshops that I've gone to this past year. One of them was about dealing with your very difficult students, so you're a very small group, and how to kind of work with them on learning the skill of behaving in the classroom. And then the other one was more, more about all the students, the different levels of students that you have, and how to work with each of those. But it just helps to make your mind think differently, to have a growth mindset, to be open to new ideas. It just really helps in my area of being in discipline constantly. For our teachers specifically, what I've seen this year that I like the most is we send our few teachers out to professional development programs, and then they come back and they present it to the rest of our staff at our faculty meetings. We have one every month. And when they present it in some form or fashion, whether it's a certain type of like talk, read, talk, write type of presentation, or some type of technology that then the teacher can go in and use in their classroom as well. So it's both something they can use to make themselves grow as a teacher, as well as some form of I can't think of the word I want to use right now. Some form of
Something that they could take into their classroom.
Yes, like a piece of technology or a way to teach the students. The words on the tip of my tongue, I can't think of it. But I think that's very impactful for our teachers, because they get to come back and present it, so they take something that they really like from the professional development. We only ask for one piece to come back, and they present it to the teachers to show them, like, hey, I think this can work in my classroom. So that's something that I felt is really beneficial to our teachers.
Now, with the faculty meetings and these professional development for your teachers, is it a set time that it happens so that teachers are able to know when it's coming, to know how to free up their schedule, knowing that, once school's out, we do have another life, and it's difficult to get everybody there?
It is. We have one every month. Like I said, it's usually at the beginning of the month. It's a Wednesday. If we don't already have it planned out for the year, we plan it out when they leave the one before, they know the exact next date that it's going to be. So they at least have a month's time. Sometimes things happen and we have to adjust it. It's right after school, 3:45 to 4:45. And our teachers just know we had it in one classroom, and we have set up new technology in another teacher's room that we want to do for all of our teachers. And so we moved it into there once it was set up, so they could see what, as far as technology with the projector and the screen, because we got new screens. We're looking at bringing in Mimeo pads, new speakers so that they can hear better, all of the different pieces of technology so the teachers can see what they should expect next year, because that's our big push right now.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Wagner, how about you? What professional development stands out for you?
The one that I actually have a couple. One was we were presented the information, and then we were given resources and time to create lessons, and there was also some STAR testing time. I was having to do the STAR alt back when we made the tests up, and so being able to have that time for planning and like to be taught, and then say, okay, here everything we taught you, now go, almost like in a classroom that we do with our kids, was really awesome, because then we could walk away and things were ready to go, and we could start implementing it into our classroom right away, because that is difficult when you go to professional development and you learn all this great stuff, but then when you come back and you don't have time to put it in place. Given that time is really great. And then the second one I went to was on brain development, and I think that all teachers should have to go to something on brain development because I think it would really help their students, them understand their students and like the different levels that they're learning, and especially their special ed students, because the reason kids are in special ed is because more than likely something's wrong with the brain. And so when you get to learn all the different things, that, oh, okay, that's why that kid is acting that way, or that's why that kid keeps doing the same thing over and over again, and stuff like that. And I think that's an area that unfortunately is not targeted to teachers enough, and they need it. They need to know that stuff. So yeah, those would be the two for me.
Thank you. Mr. Glisson.
I'm fortunate that the one I just went to a few weeks ago was Cultivating the Classroom, and for me that one had a lot of impact, both I guess on a professional level and personal level. I enjoyed being able to take away what they had was a brag board, and being able to see it in action and how it would work, how you would use it in a classroom, and being able to see it, touch it, feel it, be part of it, because you're interacting with the whole group. So being able to see how it would work was really helpful to be able to say, oh, well, I'd like to definitely try that in my room, and I'm working on it now, trying it, and so far I've had really good success out of that. So I can definitely say that having that has been, a new tool to help, kind of push forward the classroom management of being able to really get a buy-in for everybody, because everybody wants in there, and they get their little coupon from me, and they're very excited. It's just, oh wow, I get this, and some of them are like, well, but then that one kid pulls out this, and it's like, oh wait, I want that. So it is good to get that buy-in, and having that has made the last few weeks really simple to teach a class, because I'm able just to really teach my class, not fight that whack-a-mole game of, no, you be quiet, no, now you be quiet, and you're back over here, you're fighting back and forth. So being able to do that has been very good for me, where I can sit back and take a deep breath at the end of the day and not go, oh my God. So it's nice to be able to have that. So being able to have this kind of development for me was really good. So I am happy I got to go to it. A lot of times I go to them and it's being taught by someone who's never set foot in a classroom. And that's just one of those, like, okay, you don't have a clue what you're even doing. You're talking about, well, I've demonstrated this to one kid and I had great success with it. Okay, great, one kid, but try it with 25 different kids or 32 different kids in a classroom and it becomes totally different. So for me, being able to have someone teach a professional development that's actually been in the classroom is meaningful for me. That has an impact. That's what I need. Not someone with just a degree and says, well, I'm really good at this. If you've never been in the classroom, it's hard for you to really tell me and convince me your way is going to really work.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Matoka, how about you? What's one professional development that kind of sticks out for you?
Well, I'm going to piggyback off of Ms. Wagner and Mr. Glisson. I actually have several developments I want to talk to you about. But when I was in grad school, we learned about different reading interventions to help students that were struggling with reading. And then we were actually assigned a student we had to tutor and work with. So it was very helpful to learn all those intervention strategies. And then I had to go work with that student, but always report back to my professor. And we could talk about, hey, I'm struggling with this. What do I need to do to help her? And I could hear her advice on what to do because she worked with students before. So that was helpful because I got that feedback because she had that experience.
Right.
Another professional development that was helpful was our school does mini sessions at the beginning of the school year. And one of the sessions it was over history, but they talked about how they broke down their curriculum. And every unit, they would do like a pre-test. And based on that pre-test, how the students did, they would, if the students did really good on it, then they could do like a more advanced project. Whereas if the students didn't do well on it, they had to do more simple assignments to where they understood the curriculum better. And they did that for every unit. So I was like, oh, that's really something I could implement into the classroom.
Yeah.
For those who were more advanced, they could work more on the level based on what we're covering.
Right. Oh, I like that idea. All right. Well, thank you very much. All right, my next question, Mr. Glisson, is how effective are the professional development opportunities that you have attended overall?
Tough one to say because, again, there are so many that we kind of get asked to go to, and sometimes, especially for mine in math, it's everyone always talks about, well, this works great in a reading classroom. Okay, well, good for you, but what about my math class? How can I do a talk, read, talk, write in a math class? And when you ask, the presenter's always, well, I don't know, but you can do it. But I'm one of those, I need to be able to see it, kind of be able to kinesthetically work on it and see how it works to be able to know, well, yeah, I could do that in my classroom. So when I don't get a professional development that's geared towards what I can do in my classroom, it's kind of like, well, are we wasting time and money on this? I'm just kind of feel like I'm just spinning my wheels. You're not feeding me what I need to nourish my classroom. And that's what I struggle with. I want those that can show me this can work in every classroom by doing this, this, and this. Break it down for me, and I'm good. But when you just sit there and say, well, this works great in a reading classroom, and I'm just going, okay, do I just twiddle my thumbs at this point? Because you're not feeding what I need to get there.
Does anybody else want to elaborate on their feelings?
I would agree with Mr. Glisson. I've taught kind of all over the map, and I used to get very frustrated when I was an elementary PE teacher and all of the professional development, especially at the beginning of the year, that the school districts bring in, because I've been at many different school districts as well. But it's always tends to be for your core classes, which I understand. So it's curriculum based. For me in PE, I need more of the classroom management because I have 45 kids I have to monitor at one time with me and maybe one other person. And so figuring out some kind of classroom management curriculum or professional development to bring in, I think would be very beneficial more to everyone. I see that now as an assistant principal. We have had a big push to starting with the classroom management because in the hierarchy of instructional excellence, if you don't have your two basics, which are your classroom management routines and procedures, as well as your resources, your learning resources in the classroom, then you can't move up. And it's just like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you don't have the bottom base, whatever you have at the top is never going to be achieved. And it's the same thing in learning. And that's actually from John Wink's professional development that I got to go to this year. But he talks about how it really starts with the classroom management. And if you don't have that, no matter what learning resources you have, nobody's going to hear anything because you can't, if there's so much chaos in the room and you are playing whack-a-mole with sit down and do this and do that, your lesson's never going to be taught. And I think that a lot of times professional development for districts, and I completely understand why, curriculum drives what our teachers are doing, but if our teachers don't have the skill set for the classroom management piece as a whole, even if you're in different classrooms and maybe you're really good at it, but you're not, it's still the students are going to have a gap in their education. So really focusing on that and supporting our teachers to giving them that skill set of classroom management routines and procedures, I think really is the most beneficial if you're trying to do whole group professional development.
I'd have to say this kind of same thing. If the professional development is targeted towards your area of expertise, then it's super beneficial and you can walk away with stuff. I go to special ed trainings and, we're taught how to write IEPs, which is great, but most of the IEPs that we're taught how to write and everything are really great for elementary students or your severe life skills kids because we're like putting in words per minute or colors or whatever all that kind of stuff. But I'm teaching high school resource, which are kids with learning disabilities, so they're just a little bit lower than their peers, but we're not working on how many words can they read in a minute, and we're not working on knowing colors and shapes and all that kind of stuff. We're working on, they're still learning the same curriculum as everyone else, but not on the same level as everyone else. So how do I write an effective IEP for those kids? And I think that that's one area of special education really lacks help for our resource teachers for kids with learning disabilities, as opposed to kids with like more severe cognitive disabilities and things like that. So it really is, if the professional development is targeted towards your expertise or what you need, it's super effective. But if it's not, you're kind of wasting your time and you're sitting there going, man, I wish it was somewhere else. Like I wish this was more geared towards me,
Right,
kind of thing.
right.
So
Well, I'll say kind of the same thing. Especially in some of our ESL trainings, I remember asking the question of how do I get my ESLs to understand the academic wording on the STAR test for them to be successful, and I never really got a response.
Mhm.
So, I love our training, but sometimes I don't find it beneficial to help them learn what we need them to do to succeed in the classroom.
Right. All right, thank you all very much. All right, my next question, Ms. Matoka, in what area is professional development most beneficial?
For me, I would feel like it would be very beneficial in bringing in the latest research on like curriculum, like what have we found lately that works well in the classroom, like for me, like based on reading. What are some new reading techniques we can do that is latest research? Kids nowadays are changing every day, so we need to keep up to date with what's going to keep their interest and what is research saying that would be more beneficial for them.
Can you reread the question? I'm
Sure,
sorry.
absolutely. In what area is professional development most beneficial?
I'm gonna go back to the routines and procedures and learning resources. I really think those two pieces are what can impact all teachers the most. I know I talked a lot about the routines and procedures just a minute ago, but as far as the learning resources, getting teachers to understand that everything within their classroom is a learning resource. An anchor chart on the wall is a learning resource, just like the textbook is a learning resource. Your technology is a learning resource, because I know just in our faculty meetings that we've had this year, like talking with that verbiage has made teachers start looking at their rooms differently and how is your room set up. We worked with one teacher who, where you looked in the front of her classroom, was very chaotic and lots of colors and lots of different things. And when we sat her down and said, okay, I think this might be the first place to start on looking to kind of slow things down on the wall just so that the kids can focus. We had different, just as adults were in there talking, and there were 4 of us, and there was one who has ADHD, and she was like, oh my gosh, like just having this conversation was hard for me to even look at the wall. Like I was so focused on all the different stuff going on. And so the teacher never really thought of it that way. That wall itself is a learning resource. And so the next time we came in and I looked at it, I was like, wow, like she still had a lot of the same stuff. It was just the way it was organized, the way things were pieced together. Some things were taken down and everything, but it just made it much cleaner. And so just using that verbiage and getting teachers to understand that their resources, their learning resources are everything in their classroom, I think that's very beneficial to them. But starting with those two pieces just really sets up your classroom for success, in my opinion.
Can I piggyback off what she said?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I came from a very nice family, and I was kind of sheltered, from, the world. And I will say, like, I think it would be very beneficial to kind of, if teachers we could learn, like, what these kids are kind of coming from and how to deal with some situations and how they act in the classroom. And, like, what could we do as teachers to control their behavior and let them be successful? Because, like I said, I came from a sheltered environment, so I'm not used to what these kids nowadays are seeing. So I think that would be very helpful for a new teacher.
that's what I was saying, kind of going off what you said a while ago too about, I think starting at classroom management is like the biggest and most beneficial piece of professional development, because like what Regina was saying a while ago, if you can't get the behavior under control, you can't teach. And I think a lot of teachers, I think that's why they burn out so quickly, is because somewhere along the way they miss that classroom management piece. And I know like after a while it might get repetitive, but maybe professional development every year on classroom management as part of their what's it called? Their, when you have to go to so many trainings, yeah, and things like that. There you go. Their hours every year, I think that would help. And then kind of piggybacking off what you said, and then earlier talking about like the whole brain development thing. What are these kids going through? What's going on in their world, in their heads, and all that kind of stuff? And if teachers were allowed time to learn how to deal with that, especially nowadays with the mental health issues that schools across the nation are dealing with. we need to help our professional development. That's where that's where our teachers need it.
I agree. It's we recently just had a situation where a student sent out of class because he was refusing to do his work, and when I brought him down, I was like, "What is going on?" Because he's been in trouble in the past, but not in a long time, and it all boiled down to the teacher promised him a book, and then he said made a comment that was not appropriate, so she took the book away from him. So that was the day before. So he walked in that day refusing to work because she was an Indian giver. Those were his specific words. And I'm like, okay, well, and in his mind, because he comes from poverty, and even his response to her trying to explain like why because of the gap between his skills and the gap in her skills, because she's not used to the thinking like someone who comes from poverty. He's sitting here shutting down completely, like, I don't care what you have to say. And so, and having gone to some of these workshops, and then as well, like working in some rougher school districts where you deal with that a little bit more, and having to learn that on my own, it made it easier for me to explain to the teacher that, one, the shutting down was a defense mechanism. In poverty, you get disappointed so much that you can't care about it. And then when this was promised and you took it away as a discipline piece, you hurt the relationship between the two of you. And so it was on both sides. He was wrong, don't get me wrong, but the way she handled it in that moment was probably not the most effective way. It wasn't a wrong way, it just wasn't the most effective to keep that relationship going. And so finding ways to bring in that type of professional development, especially in small communities, I think, where it is one way is how we're used to. We're in LaGrange, especially, you're used to students who their parents are always there. They're going to pay attention to their grades. They're going to make sure they behave. They're not going to let them talk back to you. That's changing. Our society as a whole, no matter if you're in a small town or a big town, it's changing. And yet our teachers aren't taught how to handle that change in society and what to do to make them the most successful. So I think that would be very beneficial.
And I'd also say this year, especially some of the South Texas really had a whole new ball game to play with Hurricane Harvey coming through and the late starts, and just our community alone, we had 300 students that were displaced with this hurricane. So we started our year off these kids have needs, and we can't just hold them accountable because they don't have their pencil, they don't have paper, they don't have their school supplies. We can't hold them accountable for that because they lost a whole lot more than just that. So we can't, we've got to look at what these kids bring to the table to begin with, which the one thing they can bring in every day is they can bring themselves. But if we can bring their attitude in and we can bring that classroom management skill in, then teaching the curriculum's a breeze.
Right.
Being able to learn the curriculum and teach it to them, I can do that fine.
Yeah.
But it's getting the kids to be able to come in and buy into what I need them to buy into in my room. And understand that this is a safe learning environment, but we need to learn. We're going to do it peacefully, and we can move on, and we can give praise and everything else, and the kids will eat it up.
Okay. In what areas is professional development inadequate?
I'm gonna go and say sometimes I feel like Regina talked so much earlier about technology, and technology is great and it's wonderful, and we're glad to have it in the classrooms. But when professional development, to me, when it's so focused on technology, okay, all this stuff is great, but I have no computers in the classroom. Or your kids can do this on their cell phones and they can send it up to your thing. Great, but there's a rule: no cell phones in class. And so those kind of things, like with me in special ed, and your kid can do this, you can do it. Great, but my kid can't even pick up a pencil,
Right.
kind of thing. So sometimes I feel like it's not balanced enough, and I feel like it's so technology based that sometimes the old school stuff is still good, and maybe we should balance it out a little bit more. I am not saying we should not have technology in our classrooms or teach kids how to learn and use it and all that kind of stuff. I'm just saying maybe we could. I feel like it's a little inadequate when that's all it focuses on. Is what I'm saying.
I agree with you, and that's why we have a huge push towards technology as a resource, not as a focus. So we do have we are very beneficial here at this campus that we have CALs, which are like computer little holding places where all of our students, we have 2 in every hallway, and I think we're getting 2 or 3 more next year. So every department basically can have one. And so that you can allow that, because I have been on campuses where I taught last year actually. I was so excited because the district I came from before had a huge technology push, and I learned all these technology pieces, and I was so excited to get to use them in my classroom. And then I get to this new school, and our Wi-Fi couldn't even hold up for everybody on it at the same time. And so it was like, well, there goes that. So I did have to go more old school, which is fine. I mean, it was good, but when you know there's so many more things that you can use to engage your students, that's very frustrating. The other thing that I think kind of hinders it, and we've talked on it some, is that it's very whole group. It's very much, and this district does a good job with the mini conferences, and teachers can choose from it. But I do think with the push of whole group learning all the time, makes it very difficult for teachers. And I find it very ironic because T-TESS itself pushes the teachers to go more in small group and not whole group anymore. So here we are as teachers learning, okay, when I'm in my classroom, my students need to be in small groups when they're learning, not just lecture classes, yet that's what we do to our teachers. Instead of doing the small groups so that they can find what is beneficial to them and make it where it's actually going to be applicable to their classroom, whether it's curriculum or discipline or anything else out there, technology. Whatever you're lacking in your classroom, you have that choice to go to and to use your own experience and your learning that's better for you. Yet that we don't give that to our teachers, and I find that very ironic.
I'm going to kind of comment on what you said earlier too. I'm a very multisensory person, and I learn best when I can actually apply what I'm learning and actually, do something hands-on. So I think that could be, I feel like that would be very beneficial. Is whatever we're learning is there some activity or something that we can do to apply the knowledge you're giving to us? Because that's when it actually sinks in with me, and I can walk away saying, hey, I actually learned something I can use in my classroom. Because I'm given that chance to apply it and then ask those questions to that person teaching.
Well, I know, and I'm going to kind of piggyback off of what was said earlier with technology and the big push. I can remember a few years ago where our internet was down on campus, and it was just, the whole campus had no internet. And I had a student come in during second period and go, all right, we get to watch a movie. And I just looked at him like, what do you mean we're going to watch a movie? Well, the internet's down. I'm like, I still have a math lesson. Well, but my last class, she couldn't get on the internet, so she couldn't get her lesson. I'm like, well, guess what, bud? I have a flash drive. I don't use the internet for that. Yeah. And sometimes that technology can disappoint some more than we can really gain from it. And while I'm all for technology, it's a whole lot to plan a lesson with technology in a classroom. And even with my interactive board that I have in my classroom, let me tell you, sometimes I'm writing over here, but the marker's going over here.
Yes.
And then you're stopping a lesson to recalibrate. And then the recalibration doesn't work. Mm-hmm. So the technology, sometimes we've got that lag that goes on. Mm-hmm. I'm getting kids on Kahoot. Sometimes that phone, that app just does not work. And it's a struggle. And then you're like, okay, well, I just lost 20 minutes of my lesson out of a 40-minute class that I had. Well, that kind of didn't go as planned. Yeah. So we can try all the technology we want, but if technology is not going to work one day, it just ain't going to, and it's always going to be the day you have it in your classroom. Never fails. The day I plant technology in my room,
yes.
It's the day you open up and the laptops are, no one plugged them in last night, and it's like, oh, really?
Yeah.
So it never fails. That's the way it works. Right. So then it's like, okay, well, we're going to worksheet stand. And they're like, well, I thought we were. I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry. Right. We'll try it another day.
Can I say a little bit more too? I was thinking, like, while we were talking, another place that sometimes I know years ago there was a big push for cross curriculum, like the reading and math teacher, like planning lessons together or whatever. And I think that kind of goes like David was saying earlier, how do I do a read, write, think, or whatever? And maybe if there was some professional development where math and reading teachers could sit down and say, and then the reading teacher could say, well, David, this is how I think you could use that in your classroom. And then David could say, okay, this is how I think you could implement some math into your reading class and things like that. I think that's another area that could use some work and should maybe be brought back, because then they're getting it, especially the like math and science where are so close, and there's so much reading in social studies.
Mm-hmm.
So how can those classes benefit from each other more? I think that should be,
Well,
but I don't know.
to add to yours, this year I've kind of been trying to make a point, because my writing teacher, she's really good with vocabulary, and every so often I'll slip her a page at one of our little PLC huddles, and I'll say, here's my next vocabulary list that's coming up, if you want to include any of those.
That's great.
So then they're seeing it in her classroom, then they're seeing it in my classroom, and hopefully it's built them up enough to where, oh, I get what that means now by the end. So seeing it a couple of times, I think is helping. We'll see how this year ends, but it's hopeful that I'm not wasting someone else's time by, hey, can you sneak these into your lesson somewhere? But we're trying to do this cross, but we don't really get time to plan and say, well, this is where we are, this is how, and
Well, and it sounds like that y'all are trying to implement it where you said how the teachers will come back and then teach everyone else something that they learned.
Yeah.
To put it in.
I really do think that, and this was the principal that's here now, that she's done for years on in the different districts she's been in, is with the using a faculty meeting as professional development, because like I said earlier, it's very beneficial when you are doing it all year long, not just in August, right before they come. You're trying to get everything going, you're really excited, and then as the year goes on, you forget about something, or maybe it didn't work, so you gave up on it real quick. So now you need something else that you can maybe try and see what you like. And so it gets our teachers talking a lot. I will say we are a small campus. We're only 2 grade levels, so that helps. But even between 7th and 8th grade, and then throughout, 7th grade by themselves and 8th grade by themselves, our teachers do a really good job of talking. We have they have to have a department meeting every month, I think it is, that is on the calendar, and they meet and they talk about, first we have our leadership team meeting, so that we talk about things here, and then the department heads go out and they meet with their departments and they talk about things, and so that's 7th and 8th grade together in their department meetings. They all have the same conference so that they can do that, and our teachers do a really good job. They actually even set up what they'll be teaching next year. Who's stronger at this than this, and what do we want to see our department going as in a whole between 7th and 8th grade? Like, what are our goals? So having those conversations and that communication, and then we also are lucky enough to have a very good instructional technologist who also kind of leads over into the curriculum side. And so she'll go and set up all those technology pieces for our teachers. Like, she creates them for them. If they ask for her help, she will do it. I know she's sat down with the history department and has created all their Nearpods, has created anything they want to use technology wise, and has helped them with those things. So we just have a really good community here, and I think that's a big piece of it too. And people being willing to listen and have new ideas and be open to things has really helped our school district. Now we're all new, so we'll see what our STAR scores look like, but we're hoping that we feel that it's going in the right direction, and it's very obvious with our students. So.
I'm just going to ask this, and whoever wants to start can start. My question is, what would be your ideal or perfect professional development? Like, if you were to attend, of course, you can content, behavior, or whatever. What is it that, in all the ones that you've attended that have been good, if you could put them all together to make the perfect professional development for you, what are some things that you would want to see in that professional development?
No more icebreakers. First of all. But no, I think the hands-on activities, the giving, like presenting the resources and then saying, oh, here, look, this is what I have for you, and you get to take pieces of this, and you have time right now, I'm gonna give you, an hour to plan or, make the activity or do whatever it is. That's what I think, for me personally, is the best.
I would agree. And then that way you can ask these questions if you have, and get your answers right away.
I would have to say, on my side, it's a little different. We send our teachers out to it. Not that I don't go myself. But I actually, when I go to them, we choose specific teachers that we feel maybe that might be something that they're weak in, or some way to give them some new ideas because they're struggling. And so my big thing is for the teacher to go with an open mind. Of course, mine are more the discipline side, like classroom management. And it's very difficult to help someone when they don't recognize that that's a weakness. And to me, professional development needs to be focused on something that you're weaker in. Yes, it's wonderful and great to go to something and you can be sitting there going, yes, I'm wonderful at that. I do it just like that. It works perfect. But we all have something we need to get better at. So whether it's discipline or curriculum or whatever, I would need to go to curriculum things because curriculum isn't my strength. Discipline is my strength. And I know that about myself. So having teachers walk into a professional development with an open mind of that I'm going to find something, one thing that I'm going to walk out of here with, no matter if it is whole group and I don't really feel like it's the perfect thing for me. I'm going to find one thing because I think when you walk in with that kind of mindset, no matter if it really isn't, and we all know that there are times we go to things that aren't necessarily for us, but we can always find something. And if you go in with that open mindset, then it will bleed back into your classroom regardless, or into your district.
I would agree. I mean, but for me, like I said, when I went to the last one, being able to see their version of a brag board and being able to see it in operation the entire time we're doing something. So even when they were asking a question and you answered it, they were coming over and they were handing you this little sticker to go put on this board. So you're being able to see how it works while you're in the lesson, you're in the classroom, you're the student at that point, you're getting to see what your students are seeing. And then being able to walk away at the end and say, oh yeah, I like that. That really worked really well. Not just hearing how it worked, but then being able to see it and be able to say, okay, so I know what it's got to look like. I know how it needs to look. I know what it sounds like. Now I can implement it in my room and I can try to make it work. And I think that's the biggest thing, being able to see it, touch it, and work with it, manipulate it, and say, okay, now I feel comfortable that I can do something like that in my room. But I think a lot of times if you just told somebody, well, use this brag board, they're going to look at you and go, what the heck is a brag board?
Yeah.
But until someone kind of holds your hand and takes you through and says, well, it's like this and this and this. And fortunately, I had that. So it was one of those things where, for me, that was a great takeaway. And that's what I need to see out of professional development, is something that I feel that I can use for there. I agree, you have to have an open mind. Because I've gotten to so many other ones and it's like, oh great, we're going to talk about reading. Yay, just what I need in my math class. That's going to teach them 1 + 1.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. Does it need to be an open mind? Sure. But do I need something when I'm there too? Absolutely. And there's stuff that I need for my classroom and specific to the needs of my kids. So many times it's someone coming in telling me, well, in this perfect world, well, tell me what kid's perfect. Because I'd like to teach that class.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Mrs. Matoka, would you like to add? What would you find beneficial? Like if you could pick your perfect professional development, what would you need to walk away with?
Well, kind of like what we've talked about, the multisensory activities. You can hear it, that's fine. But if I can't do something that actually implements that material, it's not going to stick with me.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you all so very much for coming today. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.